What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video today, and in this video we'll be taking another look at my collection. Today I'll be showcasing my Boeing 777 fleet. Surprisingly, this fleet is quite impressive considering the circumstances of my collection. Didn't think I had this many 777s, but there we go. It is a grand total of 14, 12 of the -200 variant and then 2 of the 300 variant. So this collection's been another one of those slow growers that started way back during my very early days of collecting, and it has evolved into the fleet that I have today. So go ahead and start way down the line with the first 777 that I ever got, which was this FedEx example. This tail number is, I think that's 884 Foxtrot Delta. So that was the first 777 I got all the way back in 2015. So I've had this for close to 10 years now. I got it during the holiday season. And then the next 777 came the following Christmas, this Lufthansa cargo example. I got this alongside a Delta DC-6, I remember, as I unboxed both at the same time. And then I got a DHL DC-8 as well that same Christmas that I also remember unboxing. Next 777 came with this British Airways example. This one is powered by the Trent engines. I don't have one with the GE90s, though I should probably get one of those since I did spot one in Atlanta, which I think is the first time that I've seen the British 777, at least with the GE90 engines. I don't think I've ever seen the one with the Trent engines, since those serve a slightly different purpose. But this has been very helpful for some of the medium-sized airports that I have done that do get British Airways. I know this isn't a medium-sized airport, but a good example of an airport that I've been able to use this aircraft for is Bermuda, which was very nice to have. I had a good friend of mine that actually flew through there after airliners because he was supposed to do Virgin A350 to London, but that did not happen because of bad weather. The next 777 came a couple years after that, this Delta example. This is the 200ER. So the two freighters, those are of course based off the LR model, and then we've got the last two now being ERs, and pretty much all the passenger aircraft that I have for the 777, they are all ERs. I don't have an LR passenger aircraft, which I'd love to get a Delta example, but since I already have an ER, I think I'm sufficient with that, but maybe I'll get an LR at some point, which, that'd be fun, but I never spotted one, which is a bit surprising since they always sent the ERs to Minneapolis, and LRs I think were mostly out of Atlanta back when they had those. So this is 865 Delta Alpha. I don't know if I've spotted the specific tail number. I think I've seen, I want to say like 3 or 4 of them, at least during the 2 years that I vividly remember spotting them anyway, 2019 and 2020, because after my 2020 visit they retired this type, which, the ERs I understand because they were getting old by that point, but the LRs were just barely 10 years old in some cases, so why they got rid of the LRs is a little bit ridiculous to me. I think it would have suited just fine even with the A350s in their fleet. I think they should have kept the LRs at least. And perfect example of the ERs being old is that they did wear the Ron Allen livery, at least 1 or 2 of them, when they were initially delivered. This is the Dragon Wings example that I have. I don't think anybody else has made this in 400 scale yet. I know Gemini, and they've not really touched this livery on the 777, and then NG obviously being NG, and it doesn't surprise me, but hopefully that'll change. It seems like they're on a better course heading through the rest of the year. But maybe they'll do that at some point, who knows. And this tail number, I think that one's 861, so that's one of the first ones that they got. And then this specific example here, this is with the more, at least the livery that I love the most, which is the Delta Flot. This tail number is 863. So nice to have no duplicates in terms of tail numbers with the registrations here for the Delta 777s. And then swinging back up to the back row, there's my United Unicon livery example. This is an ER variant. I do need to get the non-ER with the Eva Blue livery, which I know Gemini did 210 Uniform Alpha, but I'd love if somebody did 772, which is the one that I flew along with a couple of my great friends from Denver to Chicago. I did suggest that to NG, and sounds like they passed it on to their production team, so hopefully that gets made soon, and I'll definitely be picking that up. Here's a model that I haven't really used in a while, ever since I got it. This is the Etihad Cargo Interactive Series model by Gemini Jets. So far, my only interactive series aircraft in my collection. I'd love to get some like the 747s, or even in 1 to 200 scale, they have the 7.6 and the MD-11, which I'd love to see them do in 400 as well, if JC Wings is able to produce the molds for that so that Gemini can use it for future releases. But this is a very nice model, and hopefully I'll be able to utilize this at some point, because I don't really have much use for it other than just for display. And then we have this American Chrome example, an iconic livery on an iconic aircraft, which I believe I said when I did the retro review on this. This is certainly a livery that I love, and it suits really well on the 777, on the 200ER. Now, if you remember, Gemini actually released a 777-300ER with this livery back in 2013, which was right before they introduced the new livery, after they had announced the merger with US Airways and all that. So Gemini had produced their first 333 with that chrome livery, but after the new livery, then I believe it was like right after, then they re-released it with that new livery, which, you know, it kind of sucks that the 333s never got to wear the polished livery. I would love to see if maybe American would do a retro, like a real retro, because I still remember that debacle that happened when everyone thought that there was going to be a retro 777 with this chrome livery, flew into JFK, everybody freaked out about it, and then somebody got a picture of it and it was still wearing the normal livery. So that was interesting, and that was a couple years ago now, but, you know, sometimes things like that happen. And it was also fueled because American had posted something about, I think they did post a Chrome 777, and then when people found out that there was one getting worked on, then people connected the dots and thought, oh, we're going to get a retro, but obviously that didn't happen. But maybe one day we'll get it, and we'll see. But we do have the 738 already, and I think that's probably sufficient for them. They probably don't want a retro livery on one of their wide-body aircraft that they use for flights overseas. Next 777 to come into the collection is this Chapman Freeborn example. Now, this is one of the surprise models that my parents got me a few years ago, and I didn't know that this existed, and apparently this was a corporate-only model. This was found on the Panda Fox website for a relatively fairly reasonable price. I know this one wasn't made for sale publicly, and Gemini, as I understand it, they have quite a few of these corporate-only models that are just made for the airline and for their employees to buy. I think Sun Country, there was one instance of it, and then Delta's probably had at least several, because I remember seeing a 747-400 with a different box art. That one I think was a corporate-only model, and then I'm trying to think of some of the other examples. But point being is that there's quite a few of these. And oh yeah, the big one as well, Prime Air. I think they've made several 767 freighters, but Amazon says that Gemini Jets cannot sell those publicly, which I think is silly, because those Prime Air would be very hot sellers, those 767s. So maybe one day they'll change their mind and let Gemini do a full public release of it, because I know those would sell out. But either way, this is a very unique aircraft. This doesn't actually exist, but it's just a nice little aircraft because of the green gradient and all that. So, very nice model for sure. And then we move on to the next 200ER 777 that I got, this Eastern example, probably my most sentimental one, because I picked this up at the airplane shop in Miami in 2024. And this is, of course, during the Florida excursion when I met up with Connor and Anderson, and obviously you know the story to that if you've seen the videos. So I picked up this Eastern 777 because we did see a couple of these in Kansas City during the Jet Midwest tour, and since Eastern has got quite the presence out of those facilities at MCI, this is definitely a great pickup. And then about a month or two ago now, I did see this exact aircraft flying into Sioux Falls. They had a military movement going on, and this exact 777 came in, November 771 Kilo Whiskey. And then the latest 777-200 that I have acquired, this is from the Airliners International Convention in Atlanta, this Continental Peter Max example, which is a plane I've been meaning to get for a couple years, at least ever since this came out, and I just never got around to doing it. So I remember being at the DG pilot table, and I saw the box for this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to buy this. I need to get this desperately so that I can finally check that off. And I also bought it in honor of Blue Line Aviation, who unfortunately passed away, I think now a month or two ago. It's been a little while since that happened, but I bought this model in his honor because he loved Continental, and I think this Peter Max livery was one of his top favorites. Just all-time liveries. Doesn't matter if it's a special or a standard livery, this is definitely one of his favorites, and I think he did have this in his collection too. Now I move on to my pair of 300 ERs, which I only have two here, obviously. This one, the KLM Orange Pride, the old tail, more specifically. I'll try and raise the camera so the tails aren't blocking your views as much. But yeah, that's not going to be as effective. There we go. But there you see the KLM Orange Pride livery. This is with the 100 Years sticker, which they re-released with it, because they had done it in, I think it was 2016 when it was originally unveiled, but now this aircraft has gotten a updated Orange Pride livery, which now has the Netherlands flag embedded in part of the gradient, so I'll have to get that updated tail, or the updated livery rather, once I spot that, which hopefully will be soon. But I did see a couple of these 333s for KLM in Atlanta, but neither time it was the Orange Pride. And then this was also from Airliners 2025, this ANA 333, which I got from MV400 models for $40, and part of that was because of a little paint buff. Just that paint defect there right by the L1 door, which is pretty minor for my standards, so I figured, hey, I'll take it. It's $40. If I can get a wide body for that deal, I will happily take it. And I did see one of these in Chicago, too, so that also adds on to the sentimental value. And I think the only times I've ever seen the ANA 333 was in Chicago, because I think they sent them to JFK, too, but I don't recall if I saw one there, but I probably did. I'd have to go back through my clips that I shot there 6 years ago, and it's unbelievable that whole visit was way back in 2019 before COVID hit. So definitely a nice airline. I'd love to add more because I did see the 788 in Washington. And yeah, I think that's really all I've seen for ANA. I don't think I've seen much in the way of their 787s, like the 9 or the 10. I haven't seen much of those, and obviously their domestic fleet way out in Japan, which I've never been out of the country before. I'd love to go to Japan one day just to plane spot, because the variety there is really awesome with all the different airlines and all that. Love to spot at, like, Tokyo, Narita, Haneda, Osaka, just to name a few, and whatever other airports are really nice. And especially with United, because they've got a whole thing in Guam as well with the island hopper that they do out of Hawaii. It'd be crazy just to take a United 737 from Guam to Japan. It just doesn't seem right to me, but it works well on United's network, so maybe one day that's what I'll do. I'll do that island hopper and go to Japan through that. Or maybe I'll do Trans-Pacific flight, who knows. But there you go. There's a look at my 777 fleet. 14 total examples and counting. Would love to add some more, and especially of international carriers that I've spotted. Etihad, I remember seeing one with the older livery in Chicago. Emirates, I've seen a couple of those. And Korean Air, I did see one of the old livery 777s in Dulles. Another KLM, a regular livery example, would be great too. I'd love to add that. And just trying to think of some other examples. American as well. American would be great. And then United, I think I've seen one or two of the 333s for United. Or maybe I haven't. I don't know. The amount of planes I've spotted is crazy, so I can't even figure out if I've spotted some planes or not. But I've tried looking back through some of my old videos, and I actually just had a little personal project for me where I looked back and tried to count how many Frontier tails I've spotted, and I've spotted quite a handful, including some of the retired ones like the older livery 320s and the 319s, which have long since been retired. Never saw their 318s when they were around because I got rid of those, and I think it was like 2013 or something. And it's a fun project to do, and I'd love to do it for other airlines or different aircraft types just to see what I've spotted. Delta would especially be a very big thing because I've seen so many Delta planes due to my numerous Minneapolis visits over the years, so I'd love to do that and just see which Delta tails I've seen across all the different aircraft types that they've had since I started spotting, and especially the retired ones like the MD-80s and 90, the 777, and even some of the older 75s and 76s, which are going to be on the way out soon. Definitely would love to do that as a nice project one day. With that being said, that is the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.